when you told just regular people about how many miles you would actually travel, not necessarily drive, but travel, and everybody, they'd look at you like, what? 500 miles driving? Then you got to go to work the next day? That's what people don't understand about the wrestling business. They see they see TV, and they see a lot of people, and they see, guys driving new cars and this, that, and the other. But you take out the people aspect of it, is how did you get to these towns? You had to get there somehow. And back in those days, we did not fly. Maybe the world champion flew, but the regular territory guys, they didn't drive. I mean, they didn't fly. They had to drive. And many times I found myself, one time I found driving by myself, and I don't know how this ended up, but I was driving from Tulsa or Oklahoma City by myself. Something happened that my partner had to go somewhere, or whoever was riding with me went somewhere. And this is, and I've brought this up before, it is a wonder that more guys haven't been killed on the road. Mm-hmm. So I went to sleep at the wheel, and I almost went off the road. And if I'd have went off the road then, I'd have been in bad shape. It could have killed me probably.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because Junkyard Dog, he died at the wheel.
He did.
He fell asleep.
He did. Yep. Well, I don't know if that's from driving or because later on, Dog, he got involved in drugs, and he was up and down and in between and in and out. But I think he got killed I think it was on the interstate. He just ran off the road. That's what I heard. How did he die? He died in a car wreck, right?
Yeah, he definitely died in a car wreck. So this is Wikipedia again. In a single car accident in Interstate 20 near Forest, Mississippi, as he was returning home from his daughter LaToya's high school graduation in Wadesboro, North Carolina.
That's a long way.
Yeah. Apparently he was driving all through the night as well. So, I mean, whatever recreational pharmaceuticals he had in his body, he was also, to use the expression, dog-tired as well.
Well, and I've said that no matter what, it's a wonder more of us didn't get killed on the highway. Here's a story about Junkyard. He was making Puerto Rico, and I was in Puerto Rico, and he'd come in every couple of weeks. And that's the way they'd book guys. They'd bring them 2 weeks in, and then they'd leave, and they'd come back in 2 weeks. But we were there, and it's hurricane season. So here come a hurricane. I think this was before Dog got there. And I went to the airport right away, took my return ticket, and went home. Then I got home, and then I called Carlos about Monday, and I said, I had to go because of the hurricane. Send me a ticket. Okay, send me another ticket. I go back down. 2 weeks later, here comes another hurricane. Well, screw this. I'm gone. I go to the airport, take my ticket, and I go home. So then I called Carlos. I got to send me another ticket. He said, hey, man, I can't keep buying these in and out tickets for you. Hell, you're breaking me. I said, okay, I want this last one. I get down there. Here comes another hurricane. And I try to go home, and I was too late. I mean, I was going to cash my ticket in too, by the way, even contrary to what I'd told Carlos and Carlos Colon. So I couldn't get off the island. They canceled all the flights, but they canceled all the flights for Junkyard Dog. He was there that week too. Now, me and Dog are sitting there. I guess the other people that flew in, or if they were any, they were already gone. So now we're going to have to sit there and wait this hurricane out. So one night we're waiting it out, and we was in this hotel building. Dog was in one room, I was with the other, and I called his room and I said, hey, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I said, I'm coming over. He said, okay. Because I didn't think he wanted to be alone. I didn't want to be alone. So we got over there, and then all the lights went out. All the air conditioning went out. Everything went out except the street lights, which are battery powered. There's solar power and they have a battery in there. That's the only thing you had. Man, here it came. It's supposed to be a bad one too, like 110 mile an hour winds and rain. And so we were hearing it hit every side. Boom, de bing, de bang, de bing. So we're inside. And I didn't think the building had that much of a chance to be blown away. So we made it through the night, got up the next morning, brother. It hit it and ripped it apart. Trees were down, power lines were down. It was bad. Not much traffic. And I said, I'm starving to death. Of course, our little Denny's down the street, they had closed up. Can't get nothing. We went to the Holiday Inn and stood, big time wrestlers. We stood in the soup line with everybody else. And some of the people said, oh, Sucio Dutch Mantell. Yeah, how you doing? I was this big star in the soup line with them. So that hurricane goes on through. Then I think he was there. Junkyard Dog was there for a couple of weeks. And then a couple of weeks later, in comes another hurricane. And Junkyard Dog said, yep, I'm not going to do it. I'm going home. And he went home. So he dodged that one. And I stayed, and it wasn't that bad. So he went home, and he's the only guy that I ever knew. I won't say this beforehand, but he went home, like say Puerto Rico's here, and he goes home to North Carolina, and the hurricane's path was like this, and it would come right back through North Carolina. He's the only guy I've ever known that got caught in the same hurricane twice. And I forgot the name of it. I had it, but it was a well-known hurricane at the time because it did a lot of damage. But it didn't quite catch him in Puerto Rico, but it did. And then he went home and he got caught with it there.
What year was it?
Same
what year was it?
It's in the 90s is all I can say. I'd have to look it up. And I looked it up one time, and it was like a well-known hurricane. Not Hugo, but it's something like that.
I forgot to ask you about the hurricane story because you teed me up beforehand and said, make sure you bring up the hurricane story. And I'm glad you sort of I'm glad you brought it up because I'd forgotten about it.
Did you know the story?
No, I didn't. I've heard part of it where you kept saying that you kept going back and forth, not on our podcast, but somewhere else. Like, because you just kept escaping the island every single time the hurricane came. You were bleeding, Carlos dry on flights.
Yeah, but talking about Dog, I was with him in WCW. But by that time, his aura had kind of passed. He was heavier. He didn't look as good. And I remember one day somebody come through there and said something to Dog, and Dog had I never knew him to have a very quick temper, but he did that day. And he got up and slapped the guy around. And the guy didn't know. I don't know what the guy did either, but he said something to the dog didn't like. Dog was sitting down. He got up and just slapped the hell out of him. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm thinking, I don't know the context of this. So I'm not going to say nothing, but I forgot what it was there. But that's what drugs do to you. They change your personality, and I hated it happened to Dog because he was a good guy. And when he had that accident, as soon as I heard it, I knew that he went to sleep. Mm-hmm. I don't think he hit anybody. I think he just ran off the road. Or ran off the road. I don't know how you say that.
Single car accident it was.
Yeah, and so he went to sleep, I guarantee you. Well, I can't guarantee you. I don't know.
The Freebirds Junkyard Dog blinding feud. This will be probably a quick question. Anyway, the story goes, and this is recounted by Jim Cornette on the Dark Side of the Ring. He's blinded by the hair cream. It goes into his eyes. Michael Hayes, it was an accident, but it obviously wasn't. And there's a match where Junkyard Dog, blinded, can no longer see his newborn daughter. And he sat in the corner of the of ringside, and someone over his shoulder says something like, "Don't worry, dog, I'll get him," and points the biggest gun Dog has ever seen at Michael Hayes, who was in the ring, or the Freebirds who were in the ring. And Junkyard Dog has this sort of crisis of conscience of like, right, do I like pretend I'm still blind and not do anything, or do I reveal that actually I was never blind and then save Michael Hayes' life by grabbing the gun? Like, apparently it's just like a Dirty Harry kind of revolver sort of deal. And then thankfully 2 seconds later, security see this guy tackle him before a shot can be fired. Excluding Puerto Rico, because that's sort of a law unto itself, but in the territory days, how often was it that fans would threaten you with a knife, or more specifically, a gun, which is very rare? I know Bobby Heenan was shot at once. That's a famous story.
Well, I never have been threatened by a gun, or really a knife either. It's most like fists and throwing stuff, but still, when you're out there in the middle of a crowd that's kind of going berserk, you do worry about a knife, because a knife, it can just come right through them. And what they do with a knife, they take it, I'm going to tell you, that's the blade of the knife. They would do this. Just go in that far, but still they get you. It's very dangerous going through some of these crowds, especially the Puerto Rican crowds. Mm-hmm. That's where I most have the problems, because I had the most heat there, I guess. But one thing is having heat and then having speaking a foreign language to where you don't even know what they're saying. You don't even know how bad they hate you because they're speaking in another language. Now, this is what I'm going to say about that. If Dog was blind, why would he stick him in the corner? That don't make sense to me.
Why not?
Yeah.
See the dog. He can't see you, but
yeah,
buy a ticket.
And the guy had a gun and pointed it at Michael Hayes. I've never heard that story before. Possibly true. I'm not saying it's not, but well, it goes to show you how much he wanted to show you how much he liked Michael Hayes. Yeah. He didn't mind if he got shot or not. But I do believe it. But a lot of people, and even today, I think more people carrying guns today than they carried guns then.
Mm-hmm.
Because they carried guns then because the cops didn't care. As long as you didn't shoot nobody, and it's according to why you shot a person. I mean, they could damn settle the case on the street while they're investigating it by just not charging you with anything. Mm. The law was totally different back in those days, but people in Louisiana, those Cajuns are quite rowdy. And when you get them riled up, and the thing is, they all drank. And when you get a wrestling crowd, and I'm going to tell another story on top of this, when you get a wrestling crowd riled up and they're drinking, I mean, that's the worst type of, just think of the worst bar you've ever been in and multiply it by 200. Because you had 200 drunk wrestling fans out there. So it's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.